What's going on, everyone? My name is Coman2004, and, well, guess what? Today is August 9th, 2026, and that means, and yeah, some of you, many of you already know this, but today marks the 10th anniversary since No Man's Sky was unleashed on PlayStation 4 on August 9th, 2016. And yeah, of course, it was released on PC 3 days later on August 12th as well. But yeah, it's been 10 years. 10 years since No Man's Sky was released. It doesn't even feel like it's been 10 years ago. It really doesn't. But yeah, this is my launch copy. This is the launch, the vanilla 2016 launch copy of No Man's Sky, which I bought back in mid-August 2016 for a full $60 at GameStop, back when we had a local GameStop, but of course that GameStop ended up closing back in like early 2025, like a year ago. Or yeah, our GameStop closed about like a year ago or so, but yeah, like me and my brother Traeger were at GameStop that one day. I picked up this game, and Traeger picked up Terraria. So yeah, I remember playing this game for hours and hours and hours when this game launched. Hours and hours. I mean, this has been, one of my all-time favorite video games since, for the last 10 years. I was 12 years old when I first started playing this game. So yeah, and I do want to actually explain a brief history of the game, how I heard about it, how I got hyped for it, and but of course I want to talk about how it, how the launch of this game became one of the most chaotic launches in entertainment history. So I remember it was late 2013, early 2014, somewhere around there. I remember I was probably at my grandparents' house, grandma's house or whatever, and I was on YouTube at that time, and I remember I remember coming across the announcement trailer for No Man's Sky, which of course the game was revealed at the VGX Game Awards back in December of 2013, December 8th, 2013, and yeah, and it, this game, once that trailer dropped, this game became massively hyped overnight by the internet. Because this game promised to deliver an experience that no other video game or any other video game since had ever attempted. The ability to explore a procedurally generated universe of over 18 quintillion planets. And yeah, that was mind-blowing. 18 quintillion planets in a single procedural generated game universe where everything was procedurally generated. Every star, every ship, every rock, every plant, every tree, every creature, everything was procedurally generated. Like every ocean, everything was procedurally generated. And yeah, I mean, that was like, that blew, like, that to a lot of people at the time, that it just felt like mind blowing. Because, and I can explain this in more detail. And this was developed by Hello Games. Hello Games. They were the ones that, that developed No Man's Sky, which was first founded in 2008 as an indie studio by Sean Murray. They first started off with with the downloadable PS3 title Joe Danger in 2010, and of course they would later port the game to the 360 in late 2011, and of course they would later do a sequel to the game called Joe Danger 2 the movie in September 2012. And yeah, the Joe Danger games were definitely an early success for the company. This was an indie studio, and sometime in 2011, Sean Murray started working on a procedural generation prototype, which was codenamed Project Skyscraper. Yeah, it was actually like a top secret project. Yeah, he actually kept the project like a secret for about a year or so from like the rest of the studio. Basically, he was developing a custom procedural generation engine that would, because he wanted to create a game that was, that was inspired, by classic 1960s and 1970s sci-fi paper book covers, like all the classic sci-fi works of the of the 1960s and the 70s. And yeah, like this game was his passion project. And yeah, he wanted to create a game that challenged the industry's perception, bigger, better. Like, yeah, he basically created a very innovative technical breakthrough in video game design. A procedural generation engine that could generate an entire universe of 18 quintillion planets was a massive undertaking. Like, it was a massive technological leap. So for the next 2 years, up until the December 2013 announcement, he basically pulled some of the few team members, from the studio to work on the game. And in December of 2013, basically they were trying to create a playable demo, that would demonstrate the procedural generation engine. And basically they were able to get the demo finished on time, and by December 2013, this game, with Project Skyscraper, was announced in December of 2013 under the title No Man's Sky. And the trailer featured basically the player character going out of basically walking out of an ocean and walking an alien beach nearby an alien forest, and basically the player character hopping in his spaceship and basically drifting up to the sky, up to the galaxy, with ships and everything. And yeah, it also featured a pretty iconic scene of a huge sandworm and intense space battles. And yeah, this game, when that trailer debuted, it was hyped. It was massively hyped. Because I remember watching that trailer back in late 2013, early 2014. Again, I was at a grandparents' house, and yeah, it blew me away because around that time I was playing Minecraft on the Xbox 360, and of course I had been starting to play Roblox, at least the old Roblox that used to be good. Because of course I ended up creating, I joined Roblox back on November 17, 2013 under my original username Eraser 2004. Of course, it's been known as Call Me the Human 2004 since March of 2024. But yeah, around because in midway 2013, mid 2013, like because in 2013 I was playing both Minecraft and Roblox, and those were sandbox games. Sandbox games. Roblox was basically like a user generated sandbox, that looked like Lego. Minecraft was basically like a blocky one, like where you could generate, single world blocky worlds. Like Minecraft, I mean that game was huge when it first came out back in 2011. Of course, it was an alpha in 2009. But Roblox, though, yeah, it's been around since 2006. But yeah, I was playing Minecraft on the Xbox 360 a lot at the time, and yeah, I remember playing it for hours and hours. It's just because it was a sandbox, because it wasn't linear, because you weren't restricted to an objective or anything. Like you could make anything, you could create anything, that was in your imagination. You could create a survival world, and you know or you could do a creative mode. You could build a house and stuff, and yeah, Roblox was the same thing, but except it was like a user generated game, with user generated games and stuff. Yeah, like back when Roblox used to have that classic 2006 2015 identity. Of course, before the platform started going downhill in April 2016 when they removed the ticks. But yeah, but when No Man's Sky was announced, though, this felt like the ultimate dream game because it represented the next evolution of the exploration sandbox. And yeah, and over the next 2 years, 2.5 years, the game, like the internet hype around this game just exploded, like completely exploded. Like in 2014, and of course in December of 2013, in fact, Hello Games, signed an exclusive, console, like an exclusive like contract with Sony in late December, late 2013, because around that time the studio's offices were flooded. They were hit by a devastating Christmas Eve flood, which nearly derailed the development of this game. It nearly bankrupted the studio out of business. And yeah, they had to sign that deal just to stay alive, just to keep the studio alive, just to keep the game in production, to replace all of their PCs, all their development kits and everything that was damaged. And yeah, it was a very difficult time for the studio. And yeah, they essentially had to sign that deal with Sony. But unfortunately, it unfortunately exploded into something which I'm going to explain more later in this video. But yeah, as we entered into 2014, I mean, this game, it was hyped. I mean, like Sony, I remember when they debuted that trailer at E3 of 2014, which featured, the player, exploring a cave and exploring this jungle, white planet with like this huge dinosaur, and there's this rhinoceros, like this, like, this huge, like, monstrous beast that was running through the trees, and yeah, and the player character like jumped into the starship, with all the running packs of deer-like creatures, and and shifted into space, and there was an epic space battle, and then of course, drifted into this planet and did it like a dogfight, and took down a few ships and everything, and yeah, it was like that game, like that, like when, yeah, that E3 debut in June 2014 was huge. Like, it was huge. Like, that's when, and yeah, the internet hype basically just exploded because as part of that 2013-2017 exclusivity contract, it would be released as a timed exclusive on the PlayStation 4. But of course, me and Traeger didn't have a PS4 yet at the time. But yeah, it sure made me want to have one then, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, it was, yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of casual gamer fans, like, it just combined into a giant cultural internet hype, like, knowing, and a lot of people knew, oh man, this game is going to be big. And around this time, I remember when it was, because I remember, in fact, I actually bought the first two Joe Danger games on the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 I had at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Because I remember downloading the demos of those two games, and I like bought the full versions of them around that time. And yes, I was playing hours and hours of them because, of course, I wanted to experience Hello Games' previous work, and plus I wanted to support the studio, and plus I was very excited for the game, and I just, and I still love the Joe Danger games. I mean, I haven't played them in a while, but still, they're still one of my favorite platforming games. But yeah, I was like, in 2014, I was following, like, anytime where I had internet time, I was following every single thing about this game online on the internet, every single trailer, following the official website, various articles, and everything. Like, it was, and that just continued into 2015, and yeah, where they debuted even more footage, and of course I was playing, yep. And of course, around that time, I played it, I was playing a lot of Joe Danger on the Xbox 360, and I remember playing the Android version, the Joe Danger mobile app on Android, on an old Android tablet I used to have back in 2015, and yeah, and of course around that time I was still following the game, and yeah, they debuted like this amazing, breathtaking E3 gameplay in June 2015. It was amazing, and then and yeah, there was so much hype, and like Sean Murray was at like major interviews, like he was even on a late night talk show in late 2015. And yeah, I mean, and then of course entering into 2016, my game was like, everyone had been waiting nearly 3 years for this game, and And in March 2016, Sony opened up the pre-orders, the pre-orders for the game, like the digital version and the physical Blu-ray disc. And yeah, I mean, and yep, it was still massively hyped. Like, they were still pushing out, gameplay footage and everything. Like, I was following this game online for its entire hype train cycle. But unfortunately, though, the hype train spun out of control because and because unfortunately a lot of people did not realize that Hello Games was an indie studio, and the fundamental problem with the Sony Hello Games deal was the way Sony treated the small team, because around the time that the production of the game began, it was only like a few people, like 4 or 5 people, which expanded to about 15 people at near the end of production. But also, you have to understand that they were still recovering from that devastating 2013 Christmas flood, and that flooded their studio. And that's why, and of course, even though they did have to sign the Sony deal out of financial survival and to keep developing the game, they walked into a trap, because Sony's AAA blockbuster marketing machine. They try to market it as if it was a serious AAA fast-paced action game, and they positioned the game right next to many other then upcoming PlayStation 4 exclusives like Uncharted 4 and stuff, and of course they were treating Hello Games, like Sony was essentially treating Hello Games as if it was one of their first party studios. Like, they were treating this as a PlayStation 4 console exclusive, because they wanted to use the game, because when Sony realized all the hype that this game was gaining following its VGX 2013 reveal, Sony knew that a game with massive technological breakthrough, with a procedurally generated galaxy, universe of over 18 quintillion planets, was basically a perfect system seller and a perfect technical demonstration for their PlayStation, for their PS4. And they knew they had to get that contract signed, but unfortunately it spun out of control, and a lot of people had a lot of unrealistic expectations about the game, like so much unrealistic expectations. And unfortunately, on May 25th of 2016, all that positive internet hype that the game had been receiving for 2 years just started to fall apart, because a Kotaku writer, basically posted this article, a rumor of a delay. And unfortunately, and of course 2 days later, of course, Sony and Hello Games confirmed that the game was delayed from its original June 21st, 2016 release date, which was unveiled in that late 2015 I'd Seen Things trailer, which that was a incredible trailer, by the way, with incredible breathtaking narration and stuff. Yeah, and basically they delayed it from its original release date, June 21st, 2016 to August 9th of 2016. And of course to note, this game was originally going to be just a PS4 timed exclusive, and it would have came to PC later, but of course in late 2015, Hello Games just decided to revise those launch plans just to launch both on PS4 and PC. When the rumors went out, when the delay rumors went out, it basically just turned into internet toxicity, because the reporter, Jason Snyder, basically received a lot of death threats in response to basically when that article went out. Like, there was a lot of anger, like a lot of internet users, like a lot of the casual internet users of the No Man's Sky hype train, basically just like they were threatening them with death threats, bomb threats, and a lot of stuff. It was really bad. And when the delay was confirmed by Sony and Hello Games themselves 2 days later on May 27th of 2016, like it got even worse. Like it got even worse. Even worse. Yeah, like Hello Games would soon be targeted by a lot of death threats and bomb threats as well, and Sony wasn't helping matters either, because of course, and yeah, and honestly, and then of course, June 2016, of course, yes, while the game was still massively hyped, basically a lot of internet toxicity started to develop around the game for just entirely wrong reasons. But however, in late July 2016, a Reddit user, was able to get their hands on a leaked physical copy of a leaked physical PS4 copy of the game on eBay for about $1,300. It was like it was crazy how some retailers, because for whatever reason, when Sony delayed the game from June 21st to August 9th, their production pipelines, like they were already shipping the discs to stores and stuff, but of course Sony failed to actually delay, like they failed to secure the supply chain, and basically that's why some retailers ended up breaking the street date, and some that ended up receiving the physical copies earlier, like a few weeks earlier before the August 9th launch. Because that Reddit user he basically, I think he posted pictures like on Reddit of him installing the game on his PS4, and then he basically streamed videos of him playing the raw 1.0 launch build. And of course, a lot of internet users basically were angry, were so mad that they realized that, oh, like this is not the game that I thought, was going to be from the E3 trailers. Like, they realized that it was not a fast-paced action game. It was actually a very slow-paced, lonely survival indie sandbox game. And of course, and a lot of people thought that the footage was fake and stuff, but yeah, it turned out it was real, and a lot of other players basically started obtaining these so-called early leaked retail copies, and they basically began streaming their gameplay on the internet, on Twitch, on YouTube, and that's why Sony went in and aggressively DMCA'd a lot of those videos. And of course, that's when Sean Murray, had to go on his Twitter and basically saying, that this is not representative of the final product. That they've spent years making this game, you've spent years waiting, don't spoil it for yourself. But unfortunately, that leaked launch build, that ended up actually being a reflection of the final product for a lot of the player base, because And yeah, and basically the toxicity just basically got worse from there. And yeah, and then when the game launched on August 9th of 2016, oh my gosh, the internet toxicity basically went extremely out of control from there, because there was these two players that tried to stream the game. They realized that multiplayer was missing from the game, because initially, during the lead up to release, like Sean Murray was teasing, like he was constantly teasing a multiplayer element, like where it wouldn't be like a big element, like it wouldn't be like a massively multiplayer online game, but it would be kind of a multiplayer system lobby similar to Journey, like where the chances of running to other players would be near zero. But unfortunately, they were unable to get the multiplayer and the netcode finished on time, and so they ended up having to rip it out from the final retail release just so the game could run smoother. They had to strip out the planetary rotation, a lot of stuff, because they realized that the PlayStation 4's processor, of course, had technical limitations, and that's why they had to downscale the game just to get the game to run on the hardware. And yeah, this resulted in just so much drama, like from missing from that massive missing feature spreadsheet post on Reddit, on the game's Reddit forums, and of course, and a lot of people calling Sean Murray a liar, Hello Games a liar, that I don't know why I'm laughing at this, but thinking saying that that Hello Games ran a scam. They ran a multi-million-dollar scam. They scammed you. They took your pre-order money. But here's where this is gonna, because unfortunately, Hello Games, they actually wanted a lot more development time on this game, because around late 2015, Hello Games realized that they needed about an extra 12 to 18 months of development time on the game. Like, they realized they needed a lot more development time. So basically, they ran to Sony. They ran to Sony Interactive Entertainment. There was Sony Computer Entertainment at the time in 2015, to request a development extension into 2017. But of course, Sony ended up just denying that, and they only approved a minor delay to August 2016. Like, from June 21st to August 9th. That was only a 7-week delay, and that was the biggest problem. Sony treated Hello Games really poorly. Like, they really did. And they were the ones, because Sony, they were the ones that manufactured the huge hype around the game. They were the ones that forced Sean Murray into these interviews, because of course they booked every single interview, including that late night show thing. And of course, and the biggest problem was Hello Games, they were not able to be as transparent about the game's development, because unfortunately they were bounded by strict NDA agreements. They were not allowed to talk about anything so-called negative about the game. They weren't allowed to say that, oh, we had to cut out multiplayer, or hey, we have to cut these features, we have to downscale it. Like they were unable to honestly communicate with their player base. And around this time, Hello Games they were crunching around the clock, and just to meet Sony's corporate deadline. because of course Sony did not want to delay No Man's Sky out of 2016, because of course they wanted to use this game as a short-term seller profit. Just they like Sony, they just treated No Man's Sky as just a short-term seller trend on a corporate spreadsheet, just to drive PlayStation 4 purchases and the pre-orders of this game and its limited console bundles. Like Sony was using that 2014-2016 period to essentially tell people, hey, if you want to play what's going to be the biggest video game of this decade, you gotta buy a PS4. You can't buy an Xbox One. You gotta get a PS4 if you want to. For console players, you gotta get a PS4 to experience this. But the biggest problem was because around this time, Hello Games had to because Hello Games, they had to delay the PC port to August 12th because they had to, because of course the PC version was unfinished and unoptimized around that time. So basically this meant that the PS4 version ended up launching first, and then the PC version launched 3 days after. But yeah, unfortunately, Hello Games, like they were in a lot of stress because of course they were being targeted by real life terrorist threats, bomb threats, death threats, and everything, and just because of a software delay, which is just unhinged. And what's even more unhinged is because the game, it wasn't what I thought the game would be at E3, like because they expected No Man's Sky to be an epic, edgy, fast-paced action game like Destiny, like Dangerous, like Star Citizen. Like they expected it to be like a AAA game. Like they expected the exploration to be like I could just explore planets with no constraints. Like I can just explore them with and just visit them like tourist destinations. Or that I can engage in epic space battles. Basically they had, there's going to be multiplayer. I think there's going to be multi-swords, and there's going to be you're going to be able to jet back into space and land on asteroids and mine them. And everything like that. Like they were basically projecting unrealistic expectations onto the title because a lot of people view No Man's Sky as the ultimate dream game, the ultimate sandbox game. But unfortunately for those people, when they realized that the game was because the biggest problem was Sony charged $60 for this game at launch. They charged $60 for this. Yes, even though the game was a slow-paced indie survival sandbox game, Sony essentially treated the game as if it was a AAA blockbuster, and not to mention they even pressure the ESRB to slap a T rating, a T for teen ESRB rating for fantasy violence, which I think to this day I think the T rating was a massive corporate oversight, because again they were trying to position this as like an edgy game. It's an edgy, dangerous game for the teenage demographic, even though No Man's Sky actually feels more like an feels more and felt more like an E10 plus video game. Like, yeah, sure, you can kill wildlife with your multi-tool, and yes, there's intense screen shaking and all of that, but yes, there was like green alien blood, but the game was stylized. It was a stylized game. It felt like an E10 plus sandbox game, like Minecraft. Like, honestly, it's just, I don't know why they did that. Like, but yeah, basically they were using the T rating, the $60 price tag, and even in July 2016, Sony launched these 4 trailers focused on these pillars. Like the fight trailer. Like, they were trying to make it look like a relentless fighting, like a relentless first person shooter. And there was there was an explore trailer. There was explore, trade, fight, and I don't know what that other pillar was, but there was explore, fight, trade, and survive. Yeah, like 4 main pillars. Explore, trade, fight, survive. Like they were trying to hype this game as if it was just a AAA blockbuster, rather than the independent indie artistic indie game that No Man's Sky actually was. And because even during that hype, I knew from the on-site that No Man's Sky would be a survival sandbox game. It would be an indie survival sandbox game. Like even the No Man's Sky website made the survival elements very clear and stuff. Like even the game, and even there was this January 2015 Game Informer magazine that I remember picking up from GameStop 11 years ago, which had this really, really cool looking No Man's Sky cover. Still is one of my favorite Game Informer covers. Like, there was this huge interview that was on the Game Informer issue, and I would read it. I would read it for days and days throughout 2015 and 2016. I would read that. Like, yeah, it still is one of my favorite interviews. Still, but because a lot of people expected it to be a AAA blockbuster, and when they realized that that the final product did not match what consumers expected from the scripted E3 trailers, they basically just became angry and unhinged. Like, they were starting to claim that Sean Murray and Hello Games lied about the game, but I'm going to tell you, and I know you're going to try to defend. I know you're going to try to say otherwise. I do not, honestly, I do not think it is Hello Games' fault that the launch ended up being what it ended up being, because of course Sony forced Hello Games into a rigid corporate deadline to get the main 1.0 launch build, get the discs manufactured by early mid-July of 2016 for the August 9th launch. Because that's why Hello Games ended up having to issue that day 1 patch, the 1.03, which changed the way how the procedural generation worked, because of course I am going to detail, which I'm going to detail something like later in this video, but the launch around this game, like the whole conversation around this game turned from standard video game disappointment into just pure internet toxicity. Like there was a lot of just so much death threats and bomb threats that were being sent to from angry players, to Hello Games. There was a lot of people that tried to, they even tried to track down their actual studio, like try to knock on their doors, to demand their refunds and stuff, and they were manufacturing this whole narrative, the whole no man's lie or the no man's scam. And yeah, and a lot of people hated the launch build, and basically a lot of people ended up just angrily, just aggressively, just rushing to their local GameStops and just selling the game, just selling and dumping their launch copies. And it got so bad that the trade value of this game dropped significantly by the pennies. Like a lot of people were selling their copies. It was insane. It was insane. But yeah. It was an insane time, And then of course around September of 2016, there was a advertising agency that almost sued Hello Games for false advertising, but of course they ended up not doing it because they ended up reaching a conclusion that the pages, the screenshots on the Steam page just show varied experiences with of what players would expect in a procedurally generated game. But that didn't stop there, because even before launch, Sean Murray and Hello Games even faced 2 separate lawsuits, one from Sky over the use of the word Sky in the game's style, because they own the copyright to it. And it was like a 3-year battle that was going on behind the scenes. This meant that the game almost had to be retiled, and it almost derailed the release. And of course they almost got into a lawsuit. They got into a lawsuit, almost like not a lawsuit, but they were almost sued by a company that invented like a super formula, a procedural generation super formula mathematical equation. But of course Hello Games ended up, they did say, they did not, while they did actually experiment with it in development, they did not actually use it as part of the base software of the engine. They ended up creating their custom engine, their custom procedural generation engine. So yeah, like the mainstream media and Sony, like they were exploiting the financial vulnerability of Hello Games, because you got to understand, by this time, like, yes, while Hello Games was still making millions, while they made profits from that 5-month pre-order period, they were cash strapped. Like they were on a very, very limited budget, and they couldn't afford losses, and that's why the mainstream media and Sony exploited their financial vulnerability, and basically overhyping No Man's Sky as if it was a AAA blockbuster, which led a lot of people to expect a fast-paced AAA action game rather than the indie game it was. Because I don't know, it's just Sony, instead of treating it as like an indie game, instead of realizing, hey, it's an indie game, it should be like a digital only game, like sold for like $20-$30 as a digital download on the PlayStation Store. Because when Hello Games signed the deal, they thought it would be similar to the deal that they signed with them before in 2009 for Joe Danger, which which was released as a digital downloaded game on the PS3 store in 2010. They thought Sony would approach the same thing with No Man's Sky, but they did not realize how much the corporate structure of PlayStation had changed, between the period in the 4 years since they signed that initial 2009 deal for Joe Danger. Because basically Sony realized that they could weaponize an innovative procedurally generated game as a system seller to drive PS4 pre-orders, to drive PS4 sales, and of course drive pre-orders of this game. But yeah, and then of course around October 2016, then of course their Twitter account ended up getting hacked into, because of course some ruthless hacker basically hacked into Sean Murray's LinkedIn, of course because he was not using two-step verification. But yeah, basically, and of course the hacked account basically ended up posting a tweet of No Man's Sky was a mistake, and then there was what it looked like to be a genuine corporate letter from the studio, but it was actually a fake one, which a lot of the mainstream media reported to be actual breaking news. But guess what? Basically, the corporate letter claiming, it was just from a disgruntled Hello Games employee, but turns out that was from a hacker that basically tried to engage in not just hacking the studio, but basically engaging in cyberbullying, because that hacker was basically taking advantage of all the internet hate surrounding the game. Basically they were just yeah, and it's to the point where Sean Murray ended up having to take control of the Twitter account and basically joke about it, saying, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that 2% verification." Of course, he also did that, where he made a Mr. Robot reference in that tweet. But yeah, and of course around that month, the game's Reddit forum also became very toxic, very hatred filled, that they had to lock down the entire forum entirely. Basically admitting it became a toxic. Became a toxic dump. But of course, the decision to lock it ended up gaining controversy, and then of course they ended up coming to a solution. They ended up reopening the forum. They hired more improved moderator teams, and it's been better since. But yeah, from August to November 2016, Hello Games, they went silent. They went silent on social media. They went silent from the mainstream media, because they were focused, because Hello Games, because that's why a lot of people weaponized the studio's silent period. But however, the reason why they went silent was because they did not want to add into the internet toxicity, hate, and everything, and they realized if they just kept it on saying that it would make it worse. And not to mention, you also have to realize that they were targeted with a lot with threats and stuff, and that's why they had to lock down their building. That's why they had to darken their rooms, kind of close off the windows and stuff. And they even had to work closely with the local police, just to protect the employees, just to protect themselves, so that they could continue fixing the game, because around this time they knew, and of course they knew that they had become a victim of Sony's corporate machine, because in September 2016, even a main executive at Sony even dropped a ridiculous, now infamous PR statement in September 2016 where they literally threw Hello Games under the bus. Basically, Sony decided to distance themselves from the controversy, like distance themselves from it and just let Hello Games just deal with the extreme backlash, even though Sony was the very one that created that created the perfect environment for the unchecked hype, the unchecked expectations, and the which ended up growing into toxicity. Because here's the point, because during this 100-day period of, they were concentrating, because here's the point, they were actually active because you could tell that they were active because on the official No Man's Sky website they were posting patch notes, because they even admitted that their player base was so overloaded on launch day that it overwhelmed their technical support teams, and they basically were focusing on trying to fix the main issues of the launch build while developing while secretly coding the foundation update, which would be the game's first update. And of course, in late November 2016, Hello Games basically broke silence by announcing the foundation update, and they even acknowledging the intensive 5 years of development and everything, and basically even acknowledging that the discussion around No Man's Sky had been so intense, and that they genuinely wanted to make a better game for everyone, and that there was the start of the biggest video game redemption of all time. They released a foundation update. A huge, added game modes, added motion blur, added a lot of things. And of course, they followed that with the Pathfinder update in March of 2017. Of course, Atlas Rises in August 2017, and then the massive overhaul that was No Man's Sky Next, and effectively relaunched the game in July of 2018, and pretty much all the updates that have followed since. Because I knew that Hello Games wasn't going to give up on I knew, because I was one of the many defenders of this game that were defending this game, knowing that, because I knew Hello Games wouldn't give up on this passion project that they had been working on since 2011, that they had been working on for 5 years. Because again, for someone who had been a fan of the studio since 2014 when I played the Joe Danger games, because the internet toxicity period, I remember the November 2016 period for Hello Games and this game being, it was intense. Like, I was very, very, very worried about Hello Games around that time, because honestly, they did not deserve all that hate. They just didn't deserve all of that. And and this is one of the biggest reasons why Sony, why Hello Games let their contract with Sony expire at the end of 2017, and they decided to go fully independent. Go fully strictly independent only. And and of course because of course even before this, they started to have better communication with the player base, because since they were free from Sony's this corporate marketing machine and the strict NDAs, this meant that they were able to actually be transparent, honest, which is what they actually wanted to do even from its early development, basically. And And I could even tell you, just, you know, and, because I bought this game around launch. I bought this game around mid-August of 2016, and guess what? I loved the game. It was, and to me, it was worth the 3-year wait. It was worth the 3-year wait for this game. It was worth the wait. It was absolutely worth the wait for this game. Like, I would play this game for hours and hours. I would drive my brother nuts with this game. But yeah. And yeah, and I could show you the trophies, just to show how very dedicated I was to this game. Yep, there we go. There was a No Man's Sky trophies right there. And yep, here is the list of the trophies that I got, around this time. If I can zoom the camera in a little bit, sorry, it's just when I turn the camera, it's going to not do it right, but this is the Platinum Trophy, Total Perspective Vortex on June 23rd, 2017. Scanner Darkly, August 15th. Actually, let me filter this by date. So yeah, these. Okay, let's scroll down here. These were the. Yep. I'll just show you these. Yep, that's pretty much those trophies. But yeah, it just shows how very dedicated I was to this game, even during all of the drama. So even during all that drama, I refused to sell my launch copy. I refused to get rid of my launch copy, and it absolutely paid off, because guess what? I have witnessed this game evolve over the last 10 years. And yeah, like when that Foundation update came out, I downloaded the update around December of 2016, and I ended up creating my creative mode save, which I have poured like 843 hours into. Because of course, for the first, because from December 2016 until February of 2021, I was playing the game on the PS4. And then when I got my PlayStation 5 on February 25th of 2021, my original fat model, I transferred it over, and I basically played that save on the PS5 until up to June 2025, when Hello Games released that cross save system. I ended up just moving that save data over to my Alienware or Arisen Edition R14. That's a gaming PC that I've had since August 2022, because around that time I was starting to game more on PC. So I basically just transferred my save over there, and which I've played a couple times, a couple of hours. But yeah, the fact that I even have an original survival save that I've poured like some hundreds of hours into. I have like a July 2022 survival save that I poured a little bit into, because it was through an expedition though. And yeah, like I've been playing this game for 10 years, and it's just, yes, despite all the corporate drama, Hello Games was able to make a massive comeback, and that And honestly, in that January 2020 video by the internet historian, the intergooding of No Man's Sky, like that was a very, that represented a very big turn for that, for the way the internet viewed No Man's Sky. And that's why ever since they viewed the game as a masterpiece. Like that, yeah, that video essentially deconstructed all the No Man's lie, hate, and everything, and basically framed the whole development of No Man's Sky as, as Hello Games setting out to make a passion project. And, they never wanted to make a corporate AAA dark sci-fi shooter. They wanted to make a game that honored the 1960s and the 1970s sci-fi works. And in many ways, and honestly, the game obviously, I think, in my opinion, delivered. It ultimately delivered on the lonely, artistic, indie sandbox survival experience that they promised. And after 10 years of updates, No Man's Sky has came a long way. This game's came a long way since launch, and the fact that I was even able to be part of that hype train and be one of the many first players, day one players. I didn't get the game day one, but I did get it just, several days after it launched. But yeah, I was one of the launch week players that bought this game, and yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. Ever since August 4th, I've been playing the launch build, the Raw 1.0 launch build for the game's 10th anniversary, and I've been pouring hundreds of hours into it. Like, it just feels like I'm just 12 years old again, just playing this game for hours and hours, and it's just, it really just took me back. And yeah, No Man's Sky, in my opinion, is one of the best video games ever made. Still is one of my favorite games to this day. And it's just, I just honestly think that yes, even though Hello Games had to deal with a huge corporate entity, that applied so much restrictions on them, that unfortunately set the stage for a toxic internet environment around the game's 6-month pre-launch and launch period. Here's what I would argue. The hype train for this game from 2013 to 2016, it honestly felt like the last time I was genuinely excited for a video game. It felt like the last significant cultural video game hype in the history of the video game industry and the entertainment industry, because there has never been any hype train for a game like No Man's Sky since its release, because of course, because of how the situation unfolded, they now have to. That's why everything's become so formulaic and safe, and they have to always, be honest about what they're doing, But honestly, the video game industry is right now, it's a complete train wreck right now. But yeah, this is my launch copy. This is the disc right here. Very gorgeous art, by the way. This is the launch disc that I've had for 10 years. This is the inside. This is very gorgeous. So yeah, this is just the front, and this is the spine, and this is the back. And of course, I also do have this kind of minor collector's item. This is a No Man's Sky Beyond. This is like a UK copy. This was a 2019 retail reissue of the PS4 game, the PS4 version. But yeah, this has like a region restriction on it. But yeah, I got this for like Christmas, December 2022, but I've kept this as pretty much as a collector's item. But yeah, this is still pretty neat regardless. But this here, this launch copy, this game, and honestly, for someone who's been playing this game for 10 years since launch, and for someone who had followed the game from its December 2013 announcement up until its release, and and getting the game and playing it for 10 years, like I knew from the moment the hype began, when I was following all that internet hype, this internet hype train, I knew that this would be my big next future favorite game of all time, and guess what? It did. It exactly was. And I just don't think there'll ever be a game like No Man's Sky ever again, like as innovative or as creative as No Man's Sky, because this game mixed technological innovation with artistic indie creativity, and this game is just, there's a reason why this game is still alive and well to this day, because Hello Games, they are currently working on their next game called Light No Fire, which I'm excited about too. But of course they have been keeping the development of that game quiet, so yeah, I know that game is definitely going to deliver a very solid, very great launch experience on day one. Maybe it'll launch by 2027 or 2028, but who knows? Like, they are hard at work at that and working on that game, and they're still updating this game. They're still updating No Man's Sky, and it's just, and honestly, this game, it's just I mean, it's crazy that it's been that 10 years has flown by since this game came out. It's insane. It is insane how long it's been since this game has come out, and I'm going to just tell you, and I'm going to just end off this video. Happy 10th anniversary to No Man's Sky. The game that further changed the video game industry for years to come. The last organic entertainment video game hype cycle of its era. And there will never be a hype train like No Man's Sky ever again. But yeah, it's been crazy, and but I just ultimately want to just end off this video, and if you haven't, just please subscribe to my Command 2004 channel, because I'm almost nearing 700 subscribers. But yeah, this is, I know I might be posting this video on my physical media channel, and yes, this is the first time I'm actually speaking, because usually I don't. But I just felt like I had to celebrate the game's 10th anniversary today by recording this video, by recording this 10th anniversary retrospective video on the game. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. A wild ride. But again, if you haven't, just please subscribe, and just just most importantly, share this video, and to anyone that's interested, and I will see you all in the next video, and I'll see you, like, not in the next video, but I'll see you in a future. I will see you in future uploads, and you all take care. You all have a blessed day.